All right, so welcome again, Realty Pros. Tonight we're talking about your listing consultation. So we're going to go through this full guide and we'll have sessions where you guys are going to be able to do some role play. But for tonight, we're just going to walk through it and I will pull on various of you that I know have some good experience with this to kind of fill in some of these conversations. And I see that you guys are already joining in the chat. Gotcha. No worries. If you need anything, chime in, raise your hand, put it in the chat, whatever you need. But of course, as always, all of our trainings are interactive. All right, guys. So as you're working with your sellers, you're going to have two different types of sellers. You're going to have sellers that are kind of your shoe-ins, which are, you already know them or they came to you highly referred by somebody from your sphere of influence. So you're simply going to go to them and you're able to get your listing agreement signed, but you don't necessarily have to compete for that seller. Then you're going to have sellers that they didn't come to you, from somebody that you know directly. You're going to have to actually go out amongst your colleagues in the field and compete for their business. And that's what this listing presentation allows you to do. It allows you to compete for the business and show yourself as the professional and the real estate expert. But it also, even for those of your clients that you already know well, it definitely serves as an educational tool. So even if you know them, you may not have to go through all the pages because you're not necessarily selling them on working with you if they've already committed to doing so. But you definitely want to take the opportunity to educate your clients. We are very big on educating our clients here at Porterhouse, guys. Okay, so that's your buyers through the buying consultation and your sellers through this listing consultation. So that means that you guys have got to reread a few times and get to know this information intimately. All right, your first few pages, we're going to go past those quickly because you guys know about Porterhouse, but when you are talking to your sellers, you want to just introduce them to your company. You want to share testimonials with them. If you guys have testimonials, as Shay sent out last week or the week before last when he was sending the link so that his clients could give testimonials, those are very powerful. Because people like to know, okay, what did your last client think when they work with you? What was their experience like? So you want to share those. You can absolutely download, save a copy of this to your own computer so that you can upload your own testimonials to this and you can make it custom fit for yourself. All right, guys. So I encourage each of you to do so. Ask your clients for testimonials, especially those of you who've had settlements, past clients, whatever the case is. Include some personal information because you are selling the number one product, which is yourself. All right, so that's what the first few pages of your listing presentation are. It's just the introduction and testimonials. All right, so then next we're talking to them about agency because a lot of people, they do not understand what the big deal is. Some do, and those are the ones that are ready to hire you right on the spot. But we talk about what does having an agent mean to you. And if it's a seller and a buyer, whomever it is, you all know it from class, cold AC, or however it is that your instructor taught it. You're teaching them and you're letting them know, hey, getting an agent, that means that you get cold AC, care, obedience, loyalty, disclosure, accounting, and confidentiality. But there's something that's even more that's over here on the left where we put their interests above our own. And that's very crucial. And that's a very, very important part of this process of fiduciary. I'll go back there for just a moment because you want to make sure that they understand that you, as their agent, their representative, you absolutely are duly bound by your license to put their interest above your own. Okay. Don't have to spend a whole lot of time on that page, but you do want to let them know that people appreciate the education. They appreciate that type of information. So then next, just like you do when you're working with the buyers, you're going to walk the seller through the home selling process. So this next slide, you're going to see it reiterated a couple times, depending on where we are in that selling process. Okay, so it's kind of going to mirror the transaction from the opposite side. You guys have gone through the buying process. Now you're going to do this for your seller because even if a person is a homeowner, they've been in their home for 20 years or whatever the case, not everybody has sold a home before. And if they have, I can almost guarantee you that they didn't get this type of education when they were beginning in their home selling process. We work with sellers, and I just had a listing appointment earlier today And these are sellers who last year alone, they sold 2 homes. In their lifetimes, they bought and sold probably half a dozen homes, but they have never gotten this level of education before. And they made that perfectly clear to me. And I know that several of you have even said that for your buyers, once you go through that buying presentation, people say, wow, the previous agent did not give that information to them. So let's just make sure, guys, that we're doing this every time to differentiate ourselves in the marketplace, because this is what's going to set you aside. And this is what's going to help your seller client to see you as a professional, set apart from everybody else that's just going to run them through the process and not teach them anything. Okay. So you're talking to them about evaluating their needs in the consultation. You're going to ask your seller client, hey, what is your main reason for selling? You need to know that for every person you're working with, because it establishes their motivation. It lets you know if they're serious. It lets you know, if they're probably somebody that's going to change their mind, if they're kind of back and forth. You need to know what their motivation for selling is. Just like when you're working with a buyer, you need to know their motivation for purchasing. Why is it they need to? Because that is the button that you can kind of keep your finger on the pulse of as you're walking through that process. In the event that anything happens, you need to kind of, help to press that button to keep them focused on what it is they said they needed in the first place. All right. Setting the right price. There are going to be subsequent slides to each one of these reference points on here that are going to walk you through each of these things. But this is just the overview that you're going to walk them through before you get started. Okay. So then setting the right price, determining the time frame. Of course, you're going to go through a market analysis with them. So we don't have a subject property for the evening, but we will in the weeks to come, so that we can go through the market analysis and make sure that we're able to just dissect and understand all of those components. So when you're talking to your seller clients, they say, hey, oh, wow, talking to Christina, talking to Angela, having that conversation I had with Susan, they were very knowledgeable about that market. So make sure that you guys are paying attention to your CMA there. All right. Then determining the time frame. This is crucial for most sellers, because that's what's going to determine when you press go, meaning that their time frame is going to determine when you're going to schedule your photography, order your yard signs, lockbox, and all that good stuff. So these are all conversations that you're having in this consultation period. So just walk them through this process, and then you'll get to the process where you're signing off on listing documents. Okay. So we're going to go to the next screen. Does anybody have any questions about that so far?
No.
All right. Excellent. We're going to go to the next screen. All right. So you absolutely want to talk to them about pricing as many times as need be up front. And most of the time, your sellers are going to listen to you. Sometimes you will have sellers that are going to prefer their price no matter what you tell them. But the vast majority of them, once they look at your market analysis and they see your comps, they will consider what you're saying from this perspective. You want to talk to them about strategically pricing their home, because that is what's vital to getting it sold. And we know that the buyer's desired price range is always going to be at the lower end of that price scale. And then the seller's desired price range is always going to be at the higher end of that scale. But the market has a voice, and that common price range right there, that's likely going to be the price that the property sells at. That's going to be your market value of the property. And that's, of course, the buyer's top, the seller's low. That's that commonality that's right there is where you're going to need to price that property. Okay, guys? So talk to them about that. Talk to them about the voice that the market has. No matter whether they've done $100,000 worth of updates and upgrades to their property. So now they think, it's worth $1 million, or now they think it's worth $500,000. Whatever the case is, when you go over those comps, you let them know, hey, this is the voice of the market right here. This is what it's saying. Of course, you price it too low, you lose value, but you price it too high, you lose buyers. And we'll talk about that. Any questions about that slide before we move on?
Hey, Jasmine, I have a quick question.
Sure.
In regards to pricing in this market that we're in, is there a way that you can kind of bump your price up because of the demand being so low that, you're still not because you don't really know the comps. Like you don't really know exactly what a particular house may sell for because like I have a listing that I'm getting ready that should be live next week. And it was just really challenging because there's really nothing to pull from within that area, the type of house, the size, it has a pool, like, you know, there's a lot of nice features to it. So I just wanted to just throw that out there.
So that is an excellent question, and I'm sure that other people have that same consideration. So thank you for speaking up about that. In this market, what we've seen, Curtis, is when sellers want to price their property high, it stays on the market for but longer than properties that are priced at the market value. And just to give you one of the strategies that has been tested and tried, I'll just give you an example of some of the last just few listings that we've put on the market. Say by chance, the market said that the median comp was 550, you know, high 580, low 530. If we price that thing at 549, you know, 548, whatever the case is, we're just below the median. You get so much more competition on those properties because just like you and I are looking at comps, buyers are out actually looking at the houses. So they know what the competition is and they know what they can get in that price point because they're going on tours, you know, on a daily basis with their agent. So we've seen the most productive track record when we price it according to the market, but kind of just under it. It creates so much of a frenzy in your listing that the competition then drives the price of the house up. The competition itself with your multiple offers and all of those things are going to get your seller a much higher price than pricing it at the top of the market and then limiting the buyers. Did that answer your question?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Excellent. And we can talk more about that listing because I'm familiar with that area. And I think that that's going to take a little bit more focus because those custom properties like that, it can be a little bit more of a challenge, but let's work through it together. Okay.
Sure.
Let's talk about it offline. All right. Excellent. So the next piece that you want to share, and if you guys have any questions, go ahead, type it in the chat or raise your hand, let me know, but I don't want to move on if you have a question about something. Okay. All right. So we've talked to our clients about the market having a voice and what that common price range is and all those things. Now you just want to make sure that they know that there's a difference between a comparative market analysis and an appraisal. Okay. Your CMA is not an appraisal in any way. It is an estimate of the value based on other comps that have sold that are similar to their properties. So you want to let them know that the appraised value of the property, that's going to be a specific dollar amount. Whereas the comparative market analysis, it's going to give you a low, a median, and a high volume. And then you're going to choose the price based on the comps that the subject property is most like. But at best, it is an educated guess based on the comps that you're looking at. Now, the appraiser, on the other hand, he's going to come out and do what Curtis is, you know, in need of. He's going to look at the structure itself. He or she, they're going to look at, you know, the features and the uniqueness and all these different things of the home, the year that the property or the level of upgrades and how up to date it is, amenities and all those things. And they're going to assess an actual dollar value to the property. Okay, so you want to make sure that the seller is aware that a comparative market analysis is for help in pricing. It is not an appraisal. The official appraisal will be done once they get under contract. All right, it's important that they know the difference between the two. And just for the sake of fair balance there, guys, I want to let you know it is literally, I'm sure that you guys learned in real estate school, an appraisal is an opinion of value from an appraiser. So that being said, you get 3 different appraisals. You will absolutely get 3 different values. They should be within the same range, but they will be 3 different opinions of value there. Okay. Any questions about any of that? All right. So here, this speaks to the point that we were just talking about. When you price your home according to the market, then you'll have the possibility of many more buyers competing for the home. And that's what we want in this market. And I'll give you guys another tip too that we've been doing with the last several listings. We've been shortening the window that buyers have to tour the property. So you know how most of the time you can book a 1 hour a window depending on the listing. Because there's so many buyers in this market and there's so much competition, you can literally double the amount of showings that your home can allow, double the exposure and the potential offers by shortening that window. So doing 30-minute intervals, so allowing people to only schedule for 30 minutes at a time versus a whole hour. Now you can get twice as many showings, twice as many buyers, the potential of twice as many offers within that same time frame. All right. That helps to create a whole lot of competition. It also puts the pressure on the buyers to submit an offer if they want to. Because if they're at the property and they see somebody before them and they see somebody waiting after them, it's going to create that frenzy, which drives the prices up for our sellers. All right. So here's something that you want to convey to your sellers. The most critical weeks when the property is on the market is that first 2 weeks that the property is on the market. And I will say it's been extremely hard to keep properties on the market when they're priced appropriately for over, 2 weeks. Over a week, that property is gone. You'll absolutely know when the property is overpriced if it's still on the market. And hopefully if we have, and trust me, we do have those clients that are just sticklers for their price, and you show them your market analysis, and every now and again you'll have someone that just wants to stay at their price, but most of the people will listen to you. Okay, guys? So if you ever face that, don't be disappointed. That will be the exception to the rule. Just stay with the plan. Okay. So talk to them about that first 2 weeks, knowing the time on the market, because when we price it correctly, that competition is going to come in very fiercely within that first week to 2 weeks on the market. All right. So now this is the point in your presentation when you actually start talking about the market itself. You say, well, how's the market? So then you're actually going to go to your CMA and view the comparables. You're going to view the active properties, your sold properties, days on the market, expired properties. Now, let me see. Can anybody tell me why you would need to view the active listings on the market?
To be able to compare what's actively on the market, so like the price, and like you can also compare like how the house, the pictures are, so compare it to that house actively, so you can actually show them, hey, this is actually what's on the market, this is the condition of these homes that are actually on the market. It necessarily it won't always give you a price, but it'll be able to show them what's actively on the market right next to them or within that 1 mile radius. So then they can actually see, okay, this is what I'm going to be matched up against.
That's it. That's exactly it. You're showing them what their competition is. Okay. So if you're in a community and the properties are similar, the competition is all listed for, $750. You want to make sure your property is not listed for, 1.2 if everything else is $750 over there. Okay, guys. So that is it's not the figure that the appraiser is going to use to assess the value. So just like Christina said, you're not going to get your price point from the active listings, but you will absolutely get a really good assessment of the competition. All right, now sold listings. Talk to me about the sold listings, and this will be a shoe-in. Why do you need to review the sold listings on the market?
For the price.
So we have some agents that are newer. Would you elaborate on that for me?
So you basically would look at the homes normally it's 1 mile radius. And if you can find something closer in, then that's perfect. You look at the condition of the home. You look at, that's okay. So yeah, for the sold part, you would look at the condition of the home. And you would also look at the days on the market for that as well, but I guess it's separate on here. So you basically want to see like, how does their house stack up versus homes that were already sold? What was their price point versus how did the home look? What was their square footage, their layout, and things that, that why their house was sold for that price. And that can kind of give them a true picture of like, this is what your house may sell for. It may sell for more, it may sell for less. We're in a seller's market, so it may sell for a higher price, but it just gives them a clear picture of what it can be or what's the possibility of the house being sold.
Very well said. The appraiser, when he or she assesses the value of the home, they're looking at strictly the sold comps. So that's all they're looking at. They're looking, just like Christina said, to compare your subject property with the ones in the area that have sold. Okay, so you want to consider those that have sold as recently as 6 months, but I would say in this COVID market, look at the things that have sold within a 90-day window. The appraisers, they will start out with 6 months. Be very careful when you get an appraisal and they've gone back for a year and a year and a half, because those are way too far out of the scope of the current market that we're in. And it's not going to reflect the true climate that we're in. And we had an agent that had that concern the other day. They got an appraisal back and the appraiser had pulled comps from 2019. And there were comps as recently as December of 2020. So let's just make sure that we're paying attention to, how far back they're going. Like Christina said, you're going to start within that 1 mile radius, but to make it even more intimate, if you can find that exact same subdivision, then you get a truer version of those comps. Okay, well, this is what it looks like in a 1 mile radius, but I'm going to get up close and personal. So let me start at 1 mile and then I will sort my search such that I'm able to look at it and scrub it based on the subdivision. So I know for sure in this subdivision that this is what you're looking at. Okay. So definitely the days on the market, that is essential to the conversation that you're going to have with your seller, because that also is an indicator of a couple of things, a conversation you'll have with them. Let me ask you guys, what type of conversation do you guys have with your seller or think you should have with your seller based on the days on the market?
Hello?
Yes.
I think with the days on the market, when you're comparing it to other properties, it can be a good indication as to whether or not that property was priced well, overpriced. And if the purpose is for them to get a sale or a contract pretty early, they want to narrow it down to the ones that had the least amount of days on the market. It's usually a good indication that that price was more accurate.
Spot on. That's exactly it. All right. So make sure that when you're looking at your market analysis, you're paying attention to all of these things. Okay. So when we actually get to looking at a market analysis, there's some other statistics and details that we're going to pick apart to make sure that you guys understand them. But these are some that are crucial, just kind of really big, bold, blaring in your face right offhand. And there's another indicator, which we don't have here, but we also use it as a metric. And those are going to be your expired listings. Okay. Can anybody tell me why the expired listing would be important for you to at least view and review with your clients?
I can go again.
Okay.
I kind of think it serves the same purpose. The ones that were on the market, like the days on the market for a long time, was probably an indication that it was overpriced, but it's the same for the ones that actually expired. They more than likely were overpriced and no one was interested in paying that for it.
You got it. That's exactly it. And that's the conversation you're going to have with your sellers. Okay. So here's the thing. You have an opinion of value. The appraiser has an opinion of value and the market has a voice, and the voice that's most important, that's the voice of the market. And if after being on the market for however long the listing period was, in a market such as the market we're in today, which is on fire, if being on the market for an extended period of time didn't bring a bona fide contract, then it absolutely was overpriced. All right. So that is how you want to kind of frame that the conversation around those expired listings. All right. Before we move on to this next phase, does anybody have any questions about that? About anything that we just talked about? All right. So next you want to start talking to them about marketing and how you're going to market their property. Okay. Now this is beneficial on every front because your marketing is going to benefit your client directly because it's going to heighten the exposure, bring buyers, showings, offers, and get them the highest and best value. It's also going to do something else. What is the other benefit of you marketing the property?
I would say it's going to showcase you as an agent.
Yeah, it'll definitely showcase you as an agent. Is there anything else that you marketing the property will do?
You could potentially find another client. You could get another listing, or if you really luck up and are able to find the buyer, and then you are able to get both sides of the deal.
I think I want you to repeat everything you just said one more time.
It will allow you to find a new client. That could be a new listing, someone that's looking to sell, or you might be able to find a buyer for the property, and then that will allow you to get both sides of the transaction.
Absolutely. So when you market a listing appropriately, you should get at least one buyer out of that listing. And you should also get at least another listing, if not two, out of that one listing. Okay. So listings are the name of the game in that it will multiply your real estate business just by your marketing of that listing. If I could tell you guys how many calls we get for all of you, I'm sure that everybody on this line should have received. If you haven't already, you will receive leads from us. Can anybody on this line say that they've received a lead? If you can say that you've received a lead from either Shay or I, let me hear a quick aye.
Hi, this is Naima.
I
Aye.
You guys want to know where most of those leads come from?
sure,
And
yes.
I think you can take a guess. A hint is we're kind of on the topic now. Let's see. Let's see
Marketing.
who's paying attention.
Marketing.
From listings.
Absolutely. They come from the marketing that we do for listings. And we get an abundance of leads. So of course, we're passing them out to you guys right and left. But that's the power of your listings, guys. When you get those, you want to do everything possible to make that a tremendous transaction for your seller client. And you also want to take every opportunity to exploit the marketing avenues to make sure that you build your real estate business. Okay, because if you can turn one transaction into 3 transactions at a minimum, then you have just secured your pipeline for the next 2 to 3 months. Okay, so let us talk about the marketing. And as we talk about these things, I want you to embrace them. They are your own. They're the Porterhouse way. And that's what each and every last one of us needs to do. So we want you guys to do this so that you can build your pipeline and have, transaction after transaction. Okay. All right. So we market in various ways, and you're going to talk to your seller about that because they're going to want to know, hey, some of them will want to know exactly what are you going to do to market my home. All right. So we're going to talk to them about marketing on the internet, guys. And this is going to be something that most of your seller clients are going to be grateful for. Every now and again, I think I've run across maybe three, maybe 4. I would say about 3 seller clients in my career that had a concern with their home being on the internet. Everybody else is going to be a shoo-in, but you want to let them know how aggressively it'll be marketed on the internet, because as we can see, 49% of buyers found the home that they purchased online. Okay. And what's the role of that? When we put this property into Bright MLS, it's going to do half the work for us because Bright MLS is going to syndicate out to all of the sister and partnering websites. So that's how your home is going to get on Zillow, Trulia, HomePads, and, Realtor.com and so many other websites that we can't even name. That is one of the key things that your seller client benefits by working with you as an agent versus selling the property on their own. Okay. Something very important for them to know is that everything that we do is mobile friendly, because a buyer needs to be able to search the properties. They need to be able to look at photos. They need to be able to schedule with their agent tours, whatever it is, they need to be able to do it from their phones. So mobile application is extremely important. But over here on the right side of the screen, you see internet, you see real estate agent, you see all of these things when a buyer was able to find their home based on either the agent, yard sign, so forth and so on. So you want to let your seller client know which of these things you're going to be doing and which one is most important. Of course, the internet, of course, you yourself as the real estate agent. And essentially what that's saying is the agent introduced the property to the buyer for the first time without the buyer seeing it online, which is what many of your buyers are going to do. They're going to say, hey, they're going to shoot you a property. Some of them will come to them for the first time in your auto email. Some of them they're going to be digging to find on various websites, and they're going to search those out, but also the yard sign. That's almost 10% of the time, 7% of the time, yard signs and open houses. So that's something very important for you to do, your yard signs and open houses. And then networking, talking to people, talking to friends and relatives and all those things. You want to let them know this is everything that we're going to be doing. Okay. Now, that being said, there are some things that are not beneficial anymore that used to be the name of the game, in times past. As you see newspaper, and then you see Home Book Magazine and all of those things, people who are, from back in the day with regards to their purchases in real estate, they're going to ask you about that. They'll ask you about a home book or magazine. And if you do face that, should your seller client have a question about it, this is where you're going to go to say, okay, while we can market it in a home book or a magazine for you, look at what the statistics are based on the buyers and where they found their home. You know what I mean? The buyers who were looking in that place for a home to purchase, 0%. There's not even a percentage point there. And then the newspaper advertisement, 1%, directly from the seller, the person who knew the seller, 2%, builder or their agent, you see it and it goes up, so forth and so on. Okay. So you guys are going to invest your marketing dollars where it's most beneficial, and you're going to get the most return on your investment. All right. Does anybody have any questions about any of these points? All right. So next, we're going to talk them through just maximizing the potential views in these various websites, because sellers will want to know. They're going to say, hey, where is my home going to be? How will I find my home? Like if somebody's looking it up, where are they going to find it? Of course, it's going to be on Bright MLS. So that used to be matrix.mrs.com, but now it's Bright MLS. But for the seller client, it is the multiple listing system and all of the affiliate websites. That it's going to be on HomeSnap. It's going to be on Zillow, Trulia, Homes.com, Porterhouse, RealtyPros.com, Realtor.com. So any buyer client who's searching on these various sites, they will have exposure to your listing there. Okay, guys. So you want to make sure that your seller knows where to find their home. And then just so that you know, once you get everything up and running, you want to actually send a copy of that to your seller. So one of the things you can do, you can just shoot it over to your seller in HomeSnap after you've listed it and made it active. Just click on it, click on view listing and shoot it to them just like you would a buyer, so that they can see the way that their home shows.
Excuse me, Jazz.
Sure.
Quick question. So when we put our property on or list a property on the MLS, at all of those places, it'll automatically show.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Mhm. Now, let me take a step back, because for each of our agents, you need to go to realtor.com and claim your profile. Okay. Claim your profile. So as a member of NAR, National Association of Realtors, you automatically have an account with realtor.com, because that's a part of one of your affiliations in your membership. However, you need to go and claim your seat there. You need to go and update. You need to put your picture, your bio, and all of those things, so that when people do look at realtor.com for the home, it comes up with your information there and people can reach out to you and you'll get leads from there. All right. So then your flyers and postcards and brochures, you want to make sure that you talk them through that process. And I know we talk about sending out just listed postcards so much that every single person here should know that when you get a listing, one of the first things you do is send out that just listed postcard. Okay. And I know that we've already spelled it out, but because I want to make sure that it is fully ingrained in every one of our minds, what is the purpose of sending out that just listed postcard?
To get more
Notoriety.
listings.
You got it. You got it. You're marketing, you're canvassing, you're prospecting for business, you're building your book of business. The more impressions you make, the more people see your face, they see your advertisement, then they become familiar with you as a realtor. Okay, so you get that listing and you send out those just listed postcards. And we recommend you sending it out multiple times. So once you list it, send out the just listed postcard. Once it's under contract, send out the under contract. If you have an open house, send out the open house. Once you settle, send out the just sold. And your just sold, you want to send that out 3 times for your just sold. And what you're doing is you're doing a marketing blitz. Okay. NAR says that we get about between a 2 and a 6% return on our investment with regards to mailer marketing. So that's kind of, your mailers. Now, if you can send out 200 postcards and you get a 2% response rate, how many people are going to call you from 200 postcards?
2.
So if you guys, I'm sorry, I think I
40.
heard somebody say something. 4, that's it.
40,
So,
no, 40. You said 2% of 200?
yep,
40.
almost. Take off the 0. So that 4, that's what you can be looking for buyers and seller leads. Okay, so hopefully you'll have 40 people to actually call you, but you should be able to convert between 2 and 4 of those people to actual clients. So you see the benefit in sending out this just listed, under contract, or you're just listed, then actually you're open house next, then you're under contract, you're just sold, and you send that out multiple times. That is gonna multiply your exposure, whereby once you get into, your rhythm and you're seasoned in your farm area, you can send out something monthly. But when you're looking to establish yourself in an area, you're going to need to send out this type of blitz, especially when you get a listing. You want to do that so many times so that you're multiplying your exposure to all of the potential sellers in that area. Okay. And that's how you're going to build your book of business. You're going to get more listings, you're going to get buyers, and you're going to get business on top of business from being diligent to send out your postcards there. All right. Did anybody have any questions about anything before we move on? All right. Now, open houses, guys, this is a part of your presentation for a reason. Some sellers, you're going to have to sell them on the idea of having an open house. Some sellers are going to be eager and excited and expect that it's a part of the process. But again, you want to educate them and you want to let them know that 50% of all home buyers attended open houses when they were in their home search process. Why is that important? Well, for all the obvious reasons. You want those 52% of buyers to come and view the listing that you just posted. So you want to host open houses and you want to sell your seller on allowing you to host an open house, because that's going to bring buyers into the door. It's going to maximize exposure. It'll increase the potentiality of offers and all of those things. So it benefits the seller, threefold, and it also benefits you as the agent. Can anybody tell me the benefits that open houses provide for you as an agent?
Hey, Mom.
Hey, how you doing?
Rhonda, mute yourself. Okay. Can anybody tell me some of the benefits that open houses provide?
Hey, so having an open house can gain you more exposure to the people in the neighborhood, also give you more exposure as a realtor, and also you can gain more leads, through doing open houses, because you usually have your list at a desk or something. So when people come in, they can sign their name, give you their email, their phone number, and also let you know whether they are with a realtor or not with a realtor. So that's a benefit to it.
Absolutely, guys. Remember, you are building your business, and everything you do, you're doing so strategically to benefit your client first and foremost, and also to further your real estate career. And a well-planned open house is going to do just that. It's going to bring multiple buyers through the door, guys. If 52% of buyers visited open houses, then that's 1 in every 2 buyers. So you want to absolutely do that so that you can get all of these buyer leads. Because some buyers will come with an agent, but many buyers will come without an agent. And all of those buyers that don't have agents, guess what? Instead of you having to market to them on a different front, they're coming directly to you. You know exactly who they are. You've met them. You have a chance to make a good impression on them. You have a chance to, establish a rapport with them and all of those things, and follow up with them afterwards and offer to provide them with your services, guys. But this is a tremendous opportunity for you to build your book of businesses, even if you just did open houses.
Also, Jasmine, just keep jumping in there real quick. I think you can share the example from even yesterday when the gentleman that showed us around that came
Oh,
to
yeah.
our open
Uh,
house.
So that was a wonderful experience, guys. We had an open house, and this was at some point last year. And Mr. Porter and I, we were up in Potomac yesterday for a listing that we have coming up. And the gentleman who was there to open the property for us is someone that we had already met, somebody that we met at an open house that we did last year. So he and his wife, they were there, they were, kind of back and forth, just beginning their process, not yet ready to commit. But just because we did that open house last year, he said that he and his wife were looking forward to working with us to help them purchase their home. And he was able to strengthen the connection that we had for the listing that we have coming up. So that was all through an open house. Thank you for that pointer, Mr. Porter. All right,
Jasmine, about the open house.
sure.
How does that look now due to COVID and the restrictions?
I am so glad that you asked that question. Thank you for not allowing me to go past that point. So your open houses look very different in your COVID space, guys. We got to make sure that we're paying first and foremost attention to the CDC regulations to keep our clients safe, ourselves safe, and the public safe who are coming into the open houses. So the guidelines are very different in that a traditional open house is where you host the open house, the house is open, people get a chance to walk through the house, in numbers, where we've been in some of our open houses in DC and we have about, 30 to 50 people come out in one day, and that was just regular. Now in the COVID space, it has to be by appointment. And if they're not by appointment, then they have to wait. So you're going to need more than one person to host each open house. And what happens is you have one person that is going to have to give everybody sanitizer, ensure that everybody is wearing a mask. And once you've sanitized everybody's hands, everybody has a mask, they need to sign their information as they're coming into the open house. And we want to be sure that we're using technology to collect people's information. So you simply use the job forms. We'll send that out again. It's been a little while since we shared that information, but so that people can register electronically, you can register them from your phone, you can register them from their phone, their iPad, or whatever the case is, so that you have their information that they came into the open house, okay? There can be no more than the 3 people touring together. So depending on the size of the house, guys, is very, very important. It's best for you to schedule your open house within 15-minute intervals. So say by chance you have an open house from 11 until 2 or 11 to 1. You schedule somebody for 11 to 11:15. You're able to take them on a tour of the home. Your next person you schedule from 11:15 to 11:30, you take them on a tour of the home. They come back out, you take the next person in, so forth and so on. In this COVID environment as well, we're not able to do one of the things that we were very fond in doing pre-COVID, which was refreshments. So if you wanted to do, whatever your choice was for refreshments and hosting people and making sure that they had some type of, whether it was nice hors d'oeuvres or whatever the case is, we're not able to give out any food, any refreshments, or anything like that while we're in the midst of the pandemic. Okay, so you're going to have to make sure that you have 2 people, because if you're on a regular size home, the larger the home, if it's a home that has extensive grounds, you're going to need more than that. But something that's extremely essential as well is you want to make sure that at no point are people unattended in the seller's homes. What does that mean? That means, long gone are the days where you open the door and you just let them walk through, to their heart's content. You need to accompany them. Okay, now you can choose as to whether or not you want to send them a virtual flyer so that they have the property details, or after they've sanitized their hands, make sure that they sanitize when they come in and when they leave, and there shouldn't be anything that they need to touch, because you guys are going to take Lysol, and if you wear gloves, that's fine. If not, you have your Lysol spray. You turn on all the lights before they get there. Make sure that all the windows, or the blinds, I should say, are open so that you have nice, sunlight coming through. If there's some type of fragrance or something like that, make sure that there's no need for them to contact any of the surfaces so that they're not picking up or leaving any germs. And the same thing for you guys, okay? So that's what your open
Jasmine, I had
houses.
two questions real quick.
Sure.
Two questions. One, what if they come with their own agent? And
Okay.
two, is bottled water acceptable?
So if they come with their own agent, that's perfectly fine, because you're not going to walk around the house with them. Okay. Make sure that you provide any information. It's the same thing for the agents. They need to sanitize their hands upon entering. They need to sanitize their hands when they leave. They need to have on their mask the entire time. They need to make sure that, if there is anybody else, that they're socially distancing from them. There are not supposed to be any children in the house during the pandemic. That is for the safety of the children as well as for our clients. We got to make sure that we keep things as safe as possible for people. Now, thank God we've had a lot of favorable experiences and things have been working very well. And it's our responsibility to make sure that they stay that way. Okay, so we got to follow the CDC's guidelines to a T. And we can post those for you guys again to make sure that you're paying attention, to let your clients know in advance. All right. Now, bottled water, that is something that I'm going to have to get more clarification on, because I don't think that there's a problem with bottled water as long as people sanitize their hands before and afterwards. We're just not supposed to give them any type of food, anything open or anything like that. So let me get some more clarification on that bottled water, because we haven't seen a problem with it, but I want to make sure that I give you guys an affirmative. Okay.
Hey, Miss Porter, I also
Yes.
wanted to ask, so like as far as the food is concerned, so does that include like packaged goods, like bags of chips and like crackers,
Yes.
snacks like that? Okay.
Yep.
Got it.
In the midst of this pandemic, we're not, no food.
Okay.
Okay,
Got
no food. Now, again, I'm going to give you an affirmative answer on the bottled water. Of course, not anything like we used to do. Like we would go, and if we did hot chocolate, tea, coffee, various beverages where we had Keurigs there. We just enjoyed just kind of having a nice spread and a layout for people at open houses. Now, this too shall pass. We'll be able to do that again. But until now, we got to keep it very safe for the public, for our clients, and for ourselves. Okay, guys?
Jasmine, I have a question.
Sure.
Does it change any if the property's vacant or, it's, unfurnished?
So it does not change if the property is vacant, because when we consider the fact that our clients are not going to be the only ones to go in and out of the property. So let me make sure that I answer your question specifically. When you say, does it change? Do you mean in terms of CDC's regulations? What specifically are you considering?
Well, no, I know that they still wear masks and they sanitize, but just, as far as the 15-minute, maybe increments, the appointments, having one person go in at a time, is that still as strict as you just mentioned when there's not? Because at one point I know we're concerned with their safety, but additionally we were concerned with the safety of the people who live in the property. When someone's not living in the property, I was just wondering, do the guidelines change at all?
So that's a very good question. And we're going to hold to those exact same guidelines, because here's the thing. If you were to have multiple people, if you have a small property, it becomes a lot more restrictive. If you have an enormous property where you can have, 3 people upstairs and they're touring upstairs and they don't even come into contact with the 3 people or downstairs, that's different. But if you have a row house where they're going to have to pass each other, no matter whether the property is vacant or if the property is occupied, our concern is abiding by the guidelines and making sure that people are socially distanced and we're not having too many people that are going to come into close proximity with each other, so that there's no liability on our part. So we have to have the utmost responsibility there. So I'm always a stickler for being the most conservative in terms of safety when it comes to yourselves, when it comes to the public, when it comes to our clients.
And one more thing, I know you said that these open houses are by appointment only and they can be 15-minute increments. How again are we scheduling those? Just so that I'm clear.
Okay, excellent question. So the open houses, they can be by appointment. If somebody comes, if they don't have an appointment, then they can come in, but they have to wait until there's nobody else there. And you'll have one of your colleagues or yourself, and you're checking them in at the door. You get their information, you sanitize them. One thing that I want to add to that, guys, we need to ask them if they have any symptoms, or if they have, if they have any symptoms, if they've been exposed. Now, we don't have to do that. I just prefer to make sure that, we do whatever we need to do to keep our industry safe. I'm not sure if you guys remember in the beginning of the pandemic when Governor Hogan first put out, his mandate with regards to essential businesses versus non-essential. Originally, they said commercial real estate was essential, but they said for residential real estate, the first document that he put out did not have us listed on it. Now, we were grateful that that was quickly turned over and residential real estate was added to essential businesses. But in order to keep us on the essential business, NAR agreed, and the Maryland Association of Realtors agreed that we would follow, the strict guideline to make sure that we were, doing our part to make sure that we were responsible in this pandemic. So that's why you see some of those tighter regulations, not necessarily, that they're specific to you and I, but so that we can remain, as an essential business during this time and being responsible. Okay.
I have one question. Should we check temperatures with the touchless thermometers?
You can absolutely check temperatures with the touchless thermometer. Now, here's the thing. You want to make sure that, again, nobody's coming into contact with anybody. Okay, so they're not touching you, you're not touching them or anything like that. They're coming in, they're having their mask, and just kindly ask people to make sure that the mask covers their whole mouth and nose, because you and I both know if it's not covering your whole mouth and nose, then you may as well not have it on. So make sure that they do that, because when the people are there in that house, it's like they're under your care. So you've got to be responsible to and for them in that regard. Okay, if you have a touchless thermometer, you can take their temperature when they're entering. That's perfectly fine. But just to make sure that what I talked about previously was clear, by appointment, if they don't have an appointment, if there's no one there at the time, you can take them. You just got to register them, and you got to go through all of the proper protocols that we discussed. Okay, now that being said, I'll reiterate again, whether the property is vacant or whether it's owner occupied, you want to make sure that we're managing people there. All right, now if it is, you still walk with people, make sure that you can see them, just so that you're responsible to the seller. All right, any more questions?
No, Jasmine, I just want to say that I know it sounds a little overwhelming, guys, but it's really not. And if you've never gotten a fine from the board, you don't want to. And the fines are real, and they do make you pay them. If any of you have gotten them, you can attest to that. So just make sure that we want to make sure that we're following guidelines. We can do it. So we just have to make sure we're doing our part. And we want you guys, as representing Porterhouse, to make sure you do your part. And Jasmine didn't share this, but I will share. We have a client right now who's an attorney, who's having her house shown, who has cameras in her house and is going berserk. She's sending screenshots of people doing and not following guidelines or just not doing some of the things. And so you never know when you're showing a property, an open house, what have you, what the sellers, how the sellers feel about certain things. We want to make sure that we do our best to not only uphold the guidelines, but if we can, go above and beyond to represent Porterhouse and represent yourself.
Thank you for adding that. That was a very important point. I want to share another perspective with you guys. Though it is incumbent upon us to make sure that we uphold these guidelines, the public appreciates it. When you go to an open house and you see that the people are doing what they're supposed to do, you feel safer. So it's going to help your open house to go very well, and people are going to be happy that you did. All right. I'm going to move on to the next point. All right. And this is what you're selling your client on: the power of the multi-listing system. All right. You're talking to them about heightened exposure as we go back to your listing presentation here. I believe that the most powerful tool in real estate is the MLS, the multi-listing system, where they no longer have to drive around and look for yard signs. It's so powerful because it's going to send your listing directly into the buyer's inbox. And you and I both know this, but you want to make sure that you explain this to the seller in that regard, so that it makes them kind of, wide-eyed and amazed with the power of the multi-listing system, because that's one of the benefits that you add as a realtor. You're showcasing their home, and instead of a buyer having to go onto a website and specifically search for, their home in order to find it, if it's in their search criteria, the MLS, once you establish that auto email, is going to put it right in that buyer's inbox. So you just want to walk through these things, because the layperson doesn't understand our systems. And even if we knew, we might still be learning some systems, but these are very strong talking points, and they're selling points for you as the agent, and they give the seller a better understanding. All right. So as you can see, that's what it looks like if the listing is sent to somebody's email. You see, they get to see the pictures and all that good information there. So you just want to make sure that the seller understands that, and they're excited about the opportunity that it provides to them. Okay. So next, with social media, social networking, and all that good stuff, you want to make sure that you exploit whatever avenue you're comfortable with, guys. You can use any or all of these, and we'll take out Google Plus, because Google Plus used to be tremendous. We absolutely loved Google Plus for marketing real estate. They have since shut down that platform, but you can use any of the social media marketing or any of the social media platforms for your real estate marketing, and exploit one or all of these. Any that you are comfortable and you're savvy with, exploit those for your real estate business. That's going to make your client happy to see you promoting their property on those various platforms. Some of those platforms, as we unfold it a little bit more, you see even, let's see, I think the next one should be our HomeSnap. There you go, your HomeSnap Pro. We've talked about HomeSnap Pro on quite a number of occasions, and it is a tremendous tool, because through HomeSnap Pro on its own, all you do is you pay for one of the marketing features, and it advertises for you on these various, either if you choose Instagram, if you choose Waze, you choose Facebook, wherever it is that you choose to market, HomeSnap Pro will market that property for you. And HomeSnap Pro, when you get one of those ads, it markets the property for you. It'll send you leads. It sends you all of that information from just marketing your listings there. So absolutely take advantage of HomeSnap Pro. It is a tremendous tool. I'll say that again, it is a tremendous tool. So when you get a listing, pay for that HomeSnap Pro ad, because in addition to everything else that we talked about, you're going to get direct leads from HomeSnap Pro, and it's going to promote your client's property on those platforms. Okay. Mobile marketing. We want to talk to them about, where we are. We're in 2021. So long gone are the days where buyers have to be in front of their laptops or on their tablets to look at property details. They can look at it right on their phone. So it's very important for us that everything that we do, we can use mobile marketing in. Give me 1 second. Does anybody have any questions about that or anything that we've covered thus far?
No, that the HomeSnap Pro is extremely powerful.
Mr. Porter, would you give me something to drink, please? My apologies. If you can't tell, I've been talking a lot, so my throat is getting really dry. Go ahead, Curtis, my apologies.
Oh, no, it's okay. I was just saying that the HomeSnap Pro is extremely powerful, very, very, very easy to use, and it's all like set up in that one shop. So you can go in and you can literally tell it that you want to spend $50 on Facebook, you want to do $100 on Instagram, you want to do $50 on Waze, and it essentially will, it generates your the marketing for you, and you will get leads. I've actually been getting a few. I forgot that I did it, and then it was like I actually looked, and I was like, oh, I was like, here's people, and call, and I just add them into my sphere of influence on Constant Contacts. But HomeSnap Pro is phenomenal. Very, very good tool.
I have a question
Mhm.
about HomeSnap. And for those of you who have used it, I know you have options to choose from, like you said, whether it's Waze, Facebook. Which do you feel are most effective? I mean, when I see that, I typically don't want to select Waze. And I just wanted to know what other people's experience is with that.
I haven't selected Waze either. Just because
What are
I'm
you selecting?
I personally Instagram, Facebook, and Google.
Okay, so can someone select Waze and let me know how that works out for them?
I got you. I'll throw Waze in there on this next one I got coming up. I'm curious myself because I never use Waze, but I was thinking about that during the presentation just now. I was like, Waze, you know what? Let me throw some money at Waze and see what happens. So I'll let you know.
That's some great dialogue there. And just so that you guys have that, because you have it as an option, it's a great selling point. The fact that you can market on Waze so that as people are using their directions on Waze to drive past, if they drive anywhere near the property, it's going to start waving at them almost. That property is going to pop up, hey, property for sale. And if they literally just click on it, they can see all the details. Do you know how many people probably, depending on the location of the property, will drive in that area on a daily basis? So that's a very powerful marketing tool, guys. So I want us to be comfortable with trying each of them. So Curtis, if you're going to try it, then you let the group know what your findings are with
I
that.
got you.
All right. Excellent. All right, so you're talking to them about all of these marketing strategies and you're just unfolding for them what that process is going to look like. And the wonderful part is that most of this is electronic. So though it sounds like it's a lot of this, you establish it, some of it you pay for it, and it's being done for you. Okay, so that's simply, you're talking to them about more consumers viewing their homes, guys. This is our listing presentation. You're talking to them about quality connections and prospective buyers, exposures for their home, innovation, and more buyer awareness, because the purpose of all of that is going to be multiple offers. It's going to be a whole lot of interest. It's going to be a higher price point for them. Okay, so now we're back to our flow chart. You've gotten them through that first kind of loop there. So now you're going to talk to them about preparing their property for sale. Does anybody have any questions about anything that we've covered so far before we move to the next slide? All right. So now you're talking to them about preparing their property for showings. All right. Now, in this process, you want to advise your seller to think like a buyer and pay attention to the details. The goal is to wow the buyer into submitting an aggressive offer, because buyers will absolutely tour multiple properties. So you want to advise them to put their best foot forward. And what does that look like? They want to take a critical approach, and we'll go on to those next slides there. So do a critical inspection. Have them to be sure to do a critical inspection of their own home as if they were purchasing a home for the first time. Okay. Remember, like Christina said, forgive me for switching that, as the buyers are touring homes, they're looking at those active properties on the market because that's the competition. So if they can look at the competition, they absolutely know how yours stacks up against the competition. So advise your sellers to do a critical inspection of the exterior of their home. Pay attention to all of these things listed here. You want to have them to consider the things that the buyer's going to notice first, like the need for painting. You know, if they come in and there's scuffs everywhere, that's going to create an unfavorable impression for the buyer. And talk to them about the little things that count. So little things like making sure it's spotless and the windows are clean. Those are things that the buyers will notice, and they're going to create a lasting impression for the buyer. So make sure you have those conversations with the seller, because just to wrap that up in a nutshell, if a buyer walks in and the property shows immaculately, then that buyer knows that they've got to bring their A game, and they're going to have to submit their highest and most aggressive offer in order to get it. If the buyer comes in, however, and they see, scuffs everywhere and, clutter and everything that didn't look like the seller put much into preparing it for showing, then you guys know as buyer's agents, what is the buyer going to do? What's the buyer's position going to be? That buyer is going to be looking to negotiate on that price.
Yes,
You got it. So have those
absolutely.
conversations so that the seller looks at it from the buyer's perspective. Okay. Steps to a positive showing. First impression is a lasting impression. We know that. So make sure that they have the lawns trimmed. Make sure that the inside of the house is clean. So you guys are walking them through the selling process so that they know what to expect from beginning until the end, until they actually get to settlement. And you want to make sure not to skip this because this is what's going to help to sell their listing, how well it shows.
Tell them also to try to avoid frying fish.
Oh, yes.
In other words, guys, no, smells are important.
Oh, yeah.
Don't forget about, making sure that the house smells good. I've had people walk in the house was beautiful. The odor hit them. They said, "What is that? I can't take it. Let's go."
Very good point. Very good point. Not only odors, but very strong smells. So we've had people to complain about extremely strong fragrances. So something soft, something light, something refreshing, that's what they want. So if they have a nice, Glade plug-in, not something that's too overbearing. So like Mr. Porter said, when people fry fish or if they have some very heavy food that just makes the house, not smell inviting, to our senses, that creates an impression on the buyers.
And
So talk
pets as
to your
well.
sellers about that.
Pets as well, cigarette smoke. And nowadays, even marijuana smoke, guys, you have to just take all of those things into consideration and ask your client, to get the best selling experience, that they would have to refrain from some of those things or have the pet, move to a different location, isolate it. During the selling process is very important to keep those things in mind.
Thank you for that. Less is more. Clutter makes a poor impression. So you're going to talk to them about those things. You're going to talk to them about the repairs that are visible to the naked eye. And your sellers are going to ask, they're going to say, hey, do I need to repair all of these things before I put the property on the market? Now, there are two trains of thoughts in this area. I always advise sellers, if you can see it and it's something that's in disrepair, repair it. Okay. If it's something that's not visible to the naked eye, you can wait for the buyer to get an inspection and ask you to repair it. Okay. Those are things that are detractors. If I go in and I see, the chandelier leaning, or if I see a hole in the wall, those are things that are visible. But if the inspector has to go and turn the dishwasher on to make sure that that's not working, then that's something that it will be good for them to repair. And I'm going to talk about something very briefly in here, the home warranty, guys. Make sure that when you list with the seller, you let them know just because they list with you in Porterhouse, they're going to be able to get free seller's coverage on the home warranty. So that's going to be very pertinent for them to use for any repairs that they want to do, because from the day that they're under coverage as a seller, they can use that home warranty. Whereas with a buyer, they want the buyers to wait about 30 days after closing before they call in their first claim. Okay, so make sure that they're covered, they're taken care of so that it'll save them some money on repairs as needed. Make sure that they're covered. I'll say that again for your listings. Send the information over to Cynthia Voigt and establish a home warranty for your seller. It is free coverage for the seller. The seller does not have to commit to keeping it. They don't have to pay for it until settlement, should they choose to continue with it. But for all of us, make sure that your sellers and buyers are covered. And even if you put in your disclosures that the buyer agrees to pay for a home warranty with HWA, whatever the case is, again, and I'm saying that on purpose, make sure I'm saying it multiple times, make sure that they're covered. All right.
So could I just chime in one more time, Jasmine? And I
Of
just wanted
course.
to just kind of hit that. Guys, if your seller has things that need to be repaired in the house in order to improve the value, you list it, guess what they can do? instead of paying hundreds of dollars for a repair, or maybe even thousands of dollars for a repair, they can, once that warranty is on the property, they can make a service call. Service call is about $75 for whatever service it is, and the companies that come out have to do one or two things. They have to fix it or they have to replace it. So your client is going to save tons of money just by listing with you. And then using that warranty, they're going to save tons of money on that repair.
Definitely. All right, now that's a huge selling point. That's something that's going to differentiate you from the competition. The fact that your seller client will now know, well, hey, if I go ahead and list with Angela, I get a free seller's home warranty. And there are actually a couple repairs that I need to make. So knowing that that relationship is a benefit to them will help to set you apart. All right, guys. So, and this goes without saying, little things count. So it's easy to improve the appearance of every, of homes. And I know that there are probably a number of you that have a designing side. If you want to advise them, absolutely. If there's a rug, if it's worn, move it. If they have small pillows, if they could put a pillow to brighten up a room or to add some decor, make sure that they have new towels in the bathroom. Those are small things that make a big difference, guys. If they can put flowers on the table, they can add a little decorative piece. Those are things that lend to the appeal of a staged property, and staged properties sell faster and for more. So anything that they can do to make it look staged, make sure that they do so. All right, let me see how much more time we have. We're going to wrap up in about 7 minutes. So we're going to get through, I'm going to pause for questions to see if you guys have questions.
Yeah, hi, Ms. Porter.
Yes. Yes. Kermon, I think you were trying to say something, but you may have muted yourself again.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Would you ever recommend to a client that they hire a staging company?
So it depends, okay?
Mhm.
If the property looks like it's well lived in, well, let me start by saying it depends on if it's vacant. It depends on if it's renovated. It depends on if it's been kind of lived in, but the property needs a little bit of help to kind of make it attractive. If the property needs help like that to make it attractive, then it's definitely a benefit to stage that property. It's going to sell for more. It's going to get more offers and all that good stuff. It's not necessary in every case, however, because you have a lot of homeowners. The home is going to be owner occupied, so they already have their own stuff there. So for those type of people, if you can add elements of decor to help the property feel staged, then that's going to be great. Okay, so it's kind of on a case-by-case basis. If you have a home that all the furniture is worn and they're willing to put it in storage and allow you to, call one of our partnering staging companies to make that property show better, then that would be a worthwhile investment.
Okay, and just to follow up, piggyback on that, what do you find works better? A property that has the furniture and it still looks lived in and has all the furniture in it if it's nice, or when they just take all the furniture out and have the property empty where people can kind of see the sizes and all of that?
So if the property, like you said, although it has the furniture in it and they're still living in it and it looks nice, that can help people to visualize the spacing in the room. Sometimes if the rooms are, vacant, there's no furniture in it, oftentimes the buyer can't really tell the true dimensions. And when they're looking through a home, they'll be considering their bed and their dresser, and they'll have to say, well, can my bed fit in this room? Can my dresser fit? What can fit? So if it's staged or if it has furniture there that already looks nice, then at least it allows the buyer to see the possibility of what can actually fit in those spaces.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you so much.
You got it. So showing time, this is very important that we talk to our sellers about the system that we use for scheduling tours on their property. Okay, we know it's a sophisticated management software that allows agents only to schedule tours on properties. And that's extremely important for your clients to know. Okay, in order for an agent to even schedule through showing time, they have to be a licensed realtor affiliated with a broker. Once they schedule or request a tour, you'll get an email notifying you, they'll get an email. And once you've put your client's information into that system, your client's going to get an email. So this is very important because it creates overall accountability, and you know exactly who's looking to schedule a showing on what property, when, what time, and all that good information. Okay. So that's the technology that we use to schedule tours. It's extremely important that you let them know, hey, do not allow showings outside of this. Okay, whatever their showing instructions are, they're going to be listed. You'll go to showing time, you're going to add your client's specified showing instructions there. There are going to be some showing instructions that you're going to pull from your listing document, but you're going to put all of this information into the system so that the showing agents will have your client's preferences there. All right. Special instructions, they're going to go right there. Now talk to your clients about privacy, because during these showings, you want to make sure that your client is not there as much as possible, because you want the buyers to be able to envision themselves in the space. You want them to be able to imagine freely what that would look like for them and their clients. And it kind of dampens the experience for buyers when the seller is there. Not kind of, it absolutely dampens the experience for the client, well, the buyer, when your client is there. Okay, so make sure that that buyer can look at the home without interruption with them and their salesperson. Unscheduled appointments, guys. I want to take a moment because, as Shay said, we have a client currently, and she's been looking at her videos, and she's just been, you know, really troubled with the level of, I would say, disregard that some agents have had for her showing instructions, and she's not been a happy camper. We have had so many people that literally called and say, I don't have a scheduled showing, you know, can I just go in, and all these things. Now, there was a day and time where that was fine, because you can get them a quick, you know, scheduled appointment. You can get a quick confirmation for them. But in the day that we're in, with so many buyers in the market, so many agents having competition, you want to make sure that all of your appointments are scheduled. So advise your client not to allow unscheduled showings, because then you can't keep a true read on who was at the property, when they were at the property. If by chance something were to happen, like it did with one of our clients, something got broken, you won't even know who did it. So you want to make sure that that establishes a line of accountability. You know exactly who was there, when they were supposed to be there. And it also helps to protect your client. It helps to protect the property. It helps to keep things in line so that you can manage that showing process.
A quick question, Jasmine.
Sure.
Is there a way that we can, like, how do we go about stopping that? You know, is there any way that we can deter, you know, we'll go in, set up showing time, but what happens if somebody does come up and just knock on the door, you know, like want to try to see the property without, you know, having a proper showing? Because that is one thing that my client has expressed concern about, because it happened to her before she was going to list the property about a year ago. And it was like, when it listed, people were coming, and she was like, who are you? Like, you didn't set up an appointment, and people just didn't care. You know, they just wanted to see the property. Is there anything that we can do to kind of safeguard that?
So the first thing that you can do is educate your client that that is something that we have seen. And so as to safeguard them against that, you want to have them to say, no, they do not allow unscheduled showings. Okay. Make everybody go through the proper channels. Now, your sign is going to be in the yard with your writer on it. So there's no reason that whoever it is that's interested in the property can't just pick up the phone and say, okay, I see Curtis Price, I see his telephone number, let me give him a call to see how I can actually schedule the showing. But the answer is no. Tell your clients to say no to any unscheduled appointments. Don't allow it. It does not matter who it is, how nice they seem. There is no way for us to have a record of who went into that house at any time, should anything happen, without a confirmed appointment. So the answer is to say no. Okay, that's how we're going to safeguard against that. and you want to let your clients know there's not going to be any reason that they would need to open the door, let anybody in, give anybody the key, assist them with accessing the property. The client should do absolutely nothing to assist a person with getting into the property. If the agents have scheduled their tours via showing time like they're supposed to, then they're going to receive all of the showing instructions with access information, and they will not need the client's help. So just educate the client so that they know if anybody is asking for help with something. Well, first of all, they shouldn't be there. And if anybody doesn't have the proper access information, then chances are they don't have a confirmation. So they're not allowed to tour the property. They need to call the listing agent.
Hey, Miss Porter, I got a question as well, because I've
Sure.
seen this happen. I've seen this happen a few times when I've been out showing houses and stuff, like different times, agents, when they are coming to the property and they're showing their buyers the house and stuff, sometimes, other agents or other people tend to come up and, usually once a person is finished showing a property, they'll put the keys back in the lockbox. But some agents, I guess they're very negligent or whatever, but they'll hand the keys to the next person, and then the next person show it. And I'm just like, how do you kind of safeguard against that? Like, what do you do?
Get them,
I'm
Shay.
so glad you asked that question. Mr. Porter, do you want to respond to that?
Yes, absolutely. So one of the protocols, guys, that I want you to make sure that you're very strict and follow. I don't know where, if you've ever done it before, but please don't ever do it again. When you get that key, you get it out of the lockbox. Somebody tries to hand you the key, tell them, say, please place it back in the lockbox. I'll get it out myself. Okay, you don't want to hand off a key to anybody, nor do you want to take a key that's being handed off to you. And there's a lot of reasons why I don't want to go into that. That'll belabor the issue, but we've had situations, especially when it's competitive like now, where keys have disappeared. Somebody hand you a key, it might not even have been the key for that particular house, or you were the last person to go into that house. So now the onus is on you to produce that key. You just want to make sure that you follow the remarks in the listing instructions and the showing instructions as close to the T as possible. If they ask you to put shoe covers on, get yourself some shoe covers for you and your clients and put them on. If they ask you to remove your shoes, take your shoes off. I mean, you never know who's watching. You never know who these people are. They might work for NAR. They might work for Maryland Association of Realtors. Might be an attorney. It's not worth it. But passing that key off is a big no-no at Porterhouse. We don't want to get involved in that at all.
And I want to piggyback on that, guys, because I can hear like maybe a temptation that an agent would have with regards to courtesy. It is not a professional courtesy to break the law, to break the rules and the practices that we have. They're established for a reason. Anybody can go up to a house and put on a jacket and pretend to be a realtor and be right behind you and say, hey, give me the key, I'll lock up behind it. The way that we safeguard the public, our clients, our industry, ourselves, is to make sure that not only do we follow the guidelines, but we hold other people accountable for following those guidelines as well. And how do you do that in that regard? You make sure that whoever it is that's after you, you watch them put that key back in that lockbox, and then you open that lockbox and get that key. And if there's 3 people waiting after you, you put that key back in that lockbox, and don't ever feel pressured as if it's a matter of courtesy, like you need to just hand it to them. Oh, well, I'm going to be kind, I'm going to be courteous. That's not being courteous. It's being negligent. And that's not what we do. Okay. So just follow those guidelines.
And
Go ahead.
just guys, just so you know, because I just realized, I said, okay, this is the new agent orientation. There are people out here that are very nefarious, that are not realtors, who, like Jasmine said, pose as realtors. They're professional squatters. You want to be careful of that. This can happen. This actually happened to a very good friend of ours, one of the top listers that we knew. And he was on the news, as a matter of fact, with his client. And the people, they knew the rules. They came in, they got the key, they got access. I guess he got it from somebody. I don't know how they got in. But they got in, they hung up a couple of pictures, and they started shutting showings down as though they were the residents. And the client had to go through the whole process of having them legally evicted. And you just, that's the worst, and that's your worst nightmare. Keep in mind, you can't sell a property because you have tenants that have claimed the right to the property, and they know exactly what the rules are. Pictures on the wall, evidence that they've been living there, and all that. The police is not gonna put them out just because you call and say, hey, somebody broke into the house. No, we got the key. This is where we live. It's real.
Yeah, wow, that I appreciate you all, feedback on that, because I've, I was with Samson Properties and even at TriStar Realty, and this is the first time I've ever heard this before. Like I've never, like you said, Mrs. Porter, like it almost kind of felt like a courtesy at one time. I mean, you kind of feel that pressure, but nobody has ever, I've seen that happen so many times with like other agents, and I'm just like, is this something like just happens everywhere? But it just seemed like really unsafe. So just wanted to, find out.
It is extremely unsafe. It's unsafe for your client. It's unsafe for the public. It's unsafe for you. And I don't want to belabor this, but this is extremely important for you guys, because if by chance, and there's so many different reasons, just to go with the very next one, we can have this conversation, we can continue it later, but just say by chance you're the last agent who had a confirmed showing. Somebody shows up after you, they don't even have a confirmed showing, but you do, you're on the books. Guess what? Something happens in that property. Who's the last person on record that was there? You are. Who's responsible? Who passed the key to somebody that didn't have a confirmed showing? You did. Something happened, something taken, something broken. Who are they looking at? They're looking at you, and they're looking at Porterhouse. So we've got to make sure to safeguard our clients, the public, ourselves, the brokerage, the industry, by following those guidelines and not feeling as if it's okay to be, flexible in any way. We are not going to be negligent with our clients, the public, or anybody, because there's a whole, just kind of litany of events that we can talk about if people just pass out keys to people, just kind of negligently in that regard. So I think that we've put that one to rest. All right. So does anybody have any questions?
Yes, I do. Regarding like the tracking when you have your listing. So I know people are working from home and things like that. And I know I'm going to have a listing soon, and I have a client who works from home. And so with them, and I have a client that has little babies as well, another client. So it's just like, how do we navigate that? Because they probably will be home, you'll request for them to, can you step out when you have your showings? But as far as the tracking, I know the lock boxes, of course, there's no tracking with that. Once they get the code, they may pass it to another agent. You just never know. With Century Lock, can't you see on the app every time the box is accessed and by who?
So you can. So you raised two really good points. Actually three. I want to speak to the first one. With people working from home, whether they're working from home, homeschooling, or doing both, you absolutely want to advise them to leave the property. It doesn't matter what they're doing, because even if they go and sit in their car, now they're not exposing themselves to whoever the buyers are that are coming in. The buyers are not being exposed to them. You don't worry about social distancing. The buyers have the privacy to view the home. So even if people have schedules like we've all had in the pandemic that confine you to your home space, have them to go sit in the car. Okay. If they want to take a drive, go take a drive. But that's the first and foremost thing, for them to make sure that they're not there. Another element of that is that you guys would be surprised, some of you wouldn't, the level of conversation that happens when a buyer and a seller meet. And you're talking about exposing all of their positions of negotiation that would have benefited your client as the seller, or uncovering some things. You want to make sure that you limit their conversation and limit their interaction. So just make sure, I'll give you guys an example. So one of my seller clients, she was a bleeding heart seller, and she just, we gave her this advice, and unfortunately she did not follow the advice. She was already under a ratified contract with a buyer. So the buyer came and knocked on the door, without having a showing. The buyer came with their agent. And she didn't follow our instructions. She did not, first of all, tell them that they could not come in because they didn't have a scheduled showing. Secondly, she didn't have them to advise, or she didn't advise them to direct all their questions to me. And then third of all, she didn't call me as her agent when they got there. Now that situation ended up disastrous because the buyer came in with their agent. And like I told you, she was a wonderful, amazing person to work with. She just had such a huge heart for people, but she didn't use her thought processes. She didn't use her reasoning. So the agent came with the buyer and they negotiated a pre-settlement occupancy agreement with my client without my knowledge and without me being there. So the agent brings her documents, she's in there and they're negotiating, things with the buyer. Now, that being said, this was a short sale. So there were a number of things that were not in the seller's best interest to do, but the seller did it. And the introduction into the circumstances they found themselves in was the simple fact that the seller let the buyer in without having representation. The seller, heard from the buyer and the buyer's agent. And of course, when you represent your client, you absolutely have to do what's in their best interest. So then the seller was unrepresented. They negotiated a pre-settlement occupancy agreement. Like we said, the agent with that agreement, what did she do? She changed the combo, she took out the key from the lockbox. She took out the key from the lockbox. I want to say this was on a Friday evening, and I found out about it maybe Saturday, midday or something like that. So they had already signed the agreement. My seller had already agreed to it. This agent took the key out of the lockbox. She presented me with a signed pre-settlement occupancy lease between my client and her client. And she said to me that the client is moving in tomorrow. So we were in the process of a short sale, like I said, and we were still vetting offers as they were coming in. That offer was submitted to the bank, but the bank hadn't approved it as of yet. And when the bank hasn't approved it, they want you to still submit to them any offers that come that could potentially be better than that one. So they moved in. And when I tell you the buyer's financing fell through, the buyer was not able to move forward with the purchase at that time. But now, because the buyer had an agreement with my seller, moved into the home, took the key out the lockbox, what do you think happened? They held that property hostage until the buyer could find more finance. And the buyer went through 2 or 3 lenders before that buyer could actually secure the loan to purchase that home. But because the buyer and the seller came together without, following the guidelines, without her calling to confer, and that agent knew exactly what she was doing the whole time. And she literally held up the home for my seller until her buyer was able to get financed for the home. Okay, so there are some stories that would kind of raise your eyebrows or cause them to be, blown off or whatever the case is. But when we tell you these things, we don't want you guys to have to go through the process of learning the hard way or having your clients to use the hard way, having your clients to learn the hard way. We have already been through quite a number of things. So trust me, when you see these points in here, they're for a very good reason. All right, we're trying to save you money, trying to save your client money, save you the heartache and time and all that good stuff. All right. So we're going to take a quick moment to debrief because we're about to close out, but I want to open up the floor to any questions, any comments before we close out for the evening. And we'll pick back up at this point next week.
Hey, I just had one quick comment. I know that this is a listing talk tonight, but I do want to just put out, we were talking about the lock boxes and, the keys and everything. Make sure that when you guys, I know we have a lot of women at Porterhouse. If you are doing a showing and you go into the property, make sure you lock the door. Like, you got the key, you go inside, lock the door. You never know who's outside. You never, especially if it's at night. who's around. Make sure you lock the door and keep it locked. Even when somebody, if your client does leave, you'll have to go through the property again and kind of turn the lights out. Just make sure that you keep everything locked, go through, turn the lights out, and then lock the property up and put the key back in the lockbox. But as soon as you enter, lock the door. If there's another agent, they'll just stand out there. They'll be all right. And then when you're done, lock up the property, and then they can go ahead and show.
And Curtis, right on that same note of locking the door, one of the unspoken rules in real estate, I don't know if it's a rule, but it's a kind of a way of us letting each other know that somebody's in the house, just leave the lockbox hanging.
Leave the lockbox open. Yep, with no key in it. Just
Yeah,
open.
don't put the key back in there. You keep the key with you while you're showing, but you leave that lockbox open so if anybody does come, they know that you're in there. If the police come, they know that you're in there and that you had access to that lockbox. So just leave the lockbox hanging open. Century Lock, what have you, leave it hanging open so that people can see when they come up that that lockbox has already been opened and activated. You're in the house, the door's locked, you're using it. Do not open the door. You don't answer the door. Don't answer the door. If you do, just go to the door and yell out like the old grandmamas, what you want, you gotta wait. That's it. But you don't want to open, you don't want to expose yourself or Curtis, you're right on the money, or anybody else or your clients. Just be safe, be smart. And HomeSnap does have an emergency timer so that you can set the time of your showing. You guys need, if you don't have the HomeSnap app, as for realtors, please download it. There is a timer that you can set during showings that if you don't, when it goes off, if you don't turn it off right away, it will call the people that you have identified as your emergency calls, and it will give the location out. And so those are all safety issues. We just want to make sure you guys are smart in using those technologies and tools and just common sense.
Thank you guys for those. Those are some tremendous points. Absolutely, guys. And just to reiterate that, if any agent has showing instructions, they're going to know how to access the property. So there's absolutely no reason for you to feel compelled to open any door should somebody knock on it. Okay. If they're a realtor just like you, they're going to have showing instructions. They're going to have codes or whatever the case is. Okay. So we are going to put a pin in it for tonight, guys. You have been amazing. If you have any questions, you can ask them now. Otherwise, we're going to go ahead and close out. Does anybody have any final thoughts or questions or anything, or any quick feedback that you'd like to give before we close? All right, you guys have been amazing. Have a great rest of the evening, and we'll see you guys back here next week.
Have a good night.
Have a good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night. Thank you.
Good night.
Good night.